Welcome back to the Raven LeBeau podcast. On today's podcast, we will continue with the saga that was my life with a narcissistic for 7 years. So sit back, grab your favorite beverage and snack, and enjoy the episode. So we left off talking to the ex and getting ready to move. In this episode, we are going to discuss how the move went and how I said goodbye to my roommates. So let's start off with how I continued to talk with the narcissistic ex throughout this time. We only had about a month before I had to move, and my roommates were very kind and considerate, considering I was kind of leaving them hanging. They took me out to apologize for the other guy from the previous video, if you remember. They took me out a lot to apologize, which I really found nice because I really needed the distraction from setting up all the moving stuff. So it was great. They would take me to see movies. They would take me to the arcade. They would take me to the mall just to walk around. I would blow some money here and there. But basically, we hung out a lot. So during this time, I was continuing with my relationship with a narcissistic ex. So we were talking again, mainly about him and his friends and what he was doing with his life, about his job, and everything. And very seldom did he ask me how my day was. As usual, I would have to just kind of incorporate in how my day was between him going on about his life and about how, he was getting into shape and, he was making his body look good, and he was doing all these new things, and all these herbal things, And I was like, okay, that's nice, you do what you need to do to feel good in your skin, And whereas I wanted to talk about, some things with him that I didn't get to talk with him about because it was all about him and never, wanted to know much about me besides the fact that I was sexy, I was what he wanted, and that was all he really cared about. Would like to have talked to him a little bit more about, my transitioning and how during this time, while I was talking to him and going through things, on my end, I was also trying to get my surgery set up. And where I was at, it was proving to be a bit of a challenge because where I had originally went to talk about getting breast augmentation, vaginoplasty, at first they took my insurance. Then when I was getting ready to go through the process, they didn't take my insurance anymore. So I had to look for another place. And it just became so much of a headache that I just stopped. And I was like, you know what? I'll just continue to stuff and tuck for now. And, I've got a big move coming up. So what's the point of even trying to get my surgeries? To say that I was disappointed that I couldn't get my surgeries before I went out there, I was very disappointed. I wanted to go out there already having my surgeries, but I think in the long run, it worked out better for me not getting my surgeries at the time that I wanted to, because we'll go into that a little later in another episode where all my surgeries come into play and everything that happened. But let's just, for now, say that I was disappointed, but it would get better. So I continued to talk to him. I didn't, I did mention, that I was disappointed that I couldn't get my surgeries. And he was like, it's okay. You'll get it out here. You'll get them out here, and it'll be good for you. And I was like, okay. So my roommates, we would talk, about everything, and they were very sad that I was leaving. They were not upset that I was leaving them early and kind of leaving them hanging with my part of the rent. Because where we lived was very expensive. So, it was 3 of us in a studio. So, it was not a lot of room in there, but we got along very well. So November comes, I get the transport system set up for my stuff to be moved because I wasn't moving it cross country. I didn't have no way to move all my stuff cross country. I had years and years in that place where I lived, with lots of stuff, and so my roommates helped me. We got everything packed up, we got it into the boxes. The movers came and got it, I think 2 to 3 days before I left. So all that stuff was gone. So they had a lot more room once my stuff was gone. But, they were still sad that I was leaving. So I was still talking to my narcissistic ex at the time, of course, and we were making plans. He was going to fly out here to help me, get my truck across country, and a little bit of stuff that I had put in my vehicle. And he was like, I can't wait to get out there. I can't wait to, drive cross country with you. It's going to be fun. It's going to be, a long trip, but it's going to be fun. And I was like, okay, I'm used to, driving, trips and stuff like that. So it didn't bother me. So the day comes where I have to say goodbye to my home that I've been in for 23 years, And to say that it was sad is a little understatement. It was devastating for me because I was leaving back there a life that I had built for myself, friends that I had over the years. And I was moving somewhere where I knew no one, had no one. And it was very sad. It was the end of an era for me, and I wanted to cry, but I didn't. I held everything inside, held it together, I said goodbye to my roommates. It was very early in the morning. So I said goodbye to my roommates. I got in my car. I drove to the airport to pick him up. I pick him up at the airport, and we start our drive across country. So we stopped at Walmart so we could get snacks, drinks, and we got a pillow because we were going to drive in rotations. I would drive the overnight time. He would drive during the day, because I'm used to being up on the overnight. So I was like, okay, so, GPS, how to get there and everything, and we start our drive. We're talking in the car, and we're having fun, we're laughing, we're playing music, and, he's driving for the first part because I, had worked the night before I was supposed to leave. I had worked, I was like, I gotta work, and get that last paycheck, so I have some money, deposited into my account kind of thing, that's where my thinking was at. So he was like, oh, I'll drive, you sleep. And so I slept. And not very well, I will say, because, I had stuff in the back of the car. So it was in the back seat, in the trunk area. So the car was kind of full. So there was like no sleeping in the back seat. So yeah, I kind of sleep in the front seat. And to say that it was very uncomfortable is beyond. It was uncomfortable. Even with a pillow, no matter how you tossed and turned in that seat, you were not getting comfortable. So I managed to, sleep off and on, and I would, kind of wake up and I would see him on his phone texting, whoever he's texting. And I'm like, okay, well, that better not be hookups, it better just be friends or, family or something, because we are supposed to be done with hookups. And I was like, okay, and then I would go back to sleep. And then it would be my turn to drive, and he'd be like, I'm tired, I need you to drive. And I was like, okay, so I would wake up, kind of get some caffeine in my system and get behind the wheel and start driving. Well, instead of him going to sleep right away, he would be on his phone texting. Whoever he was texting, he would be scrolling through, his sites, that I would later come to find out were sex sites, dating sites. He was like on every site you can imagine. I mean, he was on everything. And, I would later find out that he was on more than 10 sites, okay? Who the hell keeps up with more than 10 sites, okay? I mean, pictures of him naked on sites, stuff like that. But we'll get into that in a later episode. But back to our drive. It was a peaceful drive. There was no fighting. We just talked, whenever we were awake together. We would talk, and, I would listen to music while I drove. He would sleep, after he got done whatever he was doing on his phone. Because his phone was always with his phone. I was like, I've never seen somebody on their phone so much, before. My roommates and I, we were never on the phone that much. We would text, we would scroll through our phones, but we were never on our phones like that. We were playing video games together with other people online and stuff like that. Our phones were just there when we texted people and stuff or talked to people. We weren't really scrolling through looking for hookups all the time on our phones. We were still living our lives, but we were also on our phones sometimes, but not as much as this guy was. This guy was on his phone 24/7. And I'm like, good Lord. But we continued our drive, we stopped at a roadside stop area, like this big gas station. If I'm going to relate it to something, I would say like Buc-ee's, if anyone knows what a Buc-ee's is. It was kind of like that. So we go in and I have to pee so bad. Like, I really have to pee, and I hated using public restrooms at that time because to me, I did not pass, and everything. And I would have to go into the women's room because, I had breasts and everything. So I was very uncomfortable, and I really had to pee. And I had like a shadow going on because, I've been in a car for like almost 2 days, at this point, because we were getting close to, where I would soon be living. And I realized, I really have like a shadow here, and I'm going into a bathroom. I'm like, I don't know how this is gonna go. And no issues, went in the bathroom, came out the bathroom. It was just my brain going, as it always does. And went in, came out, we got some snacks, it was, some sandwiches, some snacks, some drinks, and then we continued on the road. So we're about maybe, at this point, we stopped at a burger place about maybe a state or two away from where I was going to wind up living. And I was like, oh, okay. And he was like, yeah, this is the best burgers ever, and da-da-da. And I was like, okay, cool. And we stopped and we got the burgers, and he's like, oh, we'll be home, and da-da-da-da, so we can eat them when we get home. I was like, that's fine. I don't care, I'm still tired. I'm like, I want to get off the road. I want to take a shower. I'm stinking. I want to take a shower. And so we finally get home, or to what used to be my home. And it is Thanksgiving Day, which was his whole plan to get us there on Thanksgiving Day. So I moved in on Thanksgiving Day. And we get in, and the first night, we're both exhausted. So we take a shower, we get, cleaned up and everything, and we just, unload everything in the car, and we just put it in the house. We didn't put it away. We didn't say anything up. We just put it in the house. And we go take a shower and everything, and then we lay down. He pulls out the sofa bed in the living room, which we would spend the next couple of weeks. We didn't even really go in the bedroom. We spent the next couple of weeks in the living room in front of the fireplace, and that kind of thing, because he thought that was romantic, which it was. It really was. But that night, I was exhausted. He was exhausted, but he still wanted sex. And how it happened that night was we cuddled for a while in front of the fire. He built a fire. We cuddled for a while in front of the fire. And then the next thing I know, I was on my stomach and he was going to town. And I was like, okay, I'm trying to enjoy it, but I'm so tired, and I'm just like, okay, I'm just going to let him do what he wants to do. And so we finished up, we cleaned up, we went to sleep. He got up, he went to work the next day. And, we text a little bit throughout the day. Then he would come home, and the first thing he wanted to do was have sex. Not, talk about his day, not, kiss me hello. No, just sex. So he would make me put stockings on and heels, and then, he would do me in the living room, and, we would, do different positions and stuff. And his favorite position was doggy. He just loved it when you had your ass up in the air and he was going to town. And then he would like push me down onto my stomach. And like we did this every day for weeks. He would come home, there was like just sex, like no kind of connection, just like sex. Every time we would finish having sex, he'd get off, we'd finish having sex, and I'm just like feeling empty. Like I got zero from it. Like, what the fuck? And I'm just like, okay, I didn't get off, he didn't touch me. Like, what the, I'm just saying. And I felt kind of like, you got used, like, what the? And so that continued. And, while he was at work, I got things set up. I got my computer set up. I got, everything set up. And it was maybe 2 weeks in, maybe 3. I was steadily looking for a job. I'd found me a doctor, transferred all my records to a new doctor so I could get everything I needed. I got food stamps, so I could help out with the food while I looked for a job. Now, this is during the holiday time, so you're not going to really find a job till the new year because, no one's really hiring, permanently during that time. And being that I didn't have a job in this state that I was in, it was a little bit harder for me to find a job. And so during this time, we're still in our honeymoon phase, as people would call it. He's telling me, I can't afford to pay all the bills and then pay the amount for your truck and your insurance. You have to find a job. And I'm like, I'm looking for a job, but no one's going to hire to the new year. So he continued on about the money. And I'm like, are we not supposed to be partners? Are we not supposed to be in this together? I mean, do you not have any connections where you work to get me a job, any faster so that I can make money, until I can find something I want to do, but no, he just left it up to me to find something. So Christmas goes by. All we did was fuck. Empty. Get nothing. No touching, no compassion, no passionate fire. For me, it was just put it up and let him go to town. Not once did I enjoy sex with him. But I was here now and I was stuck. So I made the best of it. A lot of times I faked it. And there was once or twice that I actually did enjoy it. He actually touched me once or twice. Actually put some effort into, getting me there. But that was very rare. So after Christmas, after New Year's, I finally get a job. And it's working at minimum wage. Okay? I'm busting my butt working at minimum wage. And he wants me to pay half of everything. Keep in mind, I still have to pay my car note and my insurance, which was not cheap because it's from another state and it was kind of high. So I couldn't afford everything. And supposedly he made a lot more money than I did. It was his house, but he kept saying it's our home, you need to pay half the bills. And I'm telling him I cannot pay half the bills with what I make and pay my car. There's no way. He didn't care. He was like, well, you pay what you can pay on the bills now, and then whatever's left over, because I know you keep track of the money, whatever's left over when you get a better paying job, you just pay it all back. And I'm just looking like, what the? Okay. I don't want to start an argument. I don't want to start a fight. I'm like, okay, whatever. But this area right here where we were fighting about the money because of him, not me, I was doing my best. Because of him, we were fighting about the money. At this point, he cheated. And we were not even 3 months in. I would find out later from someone that he cheated and that he was sorry that he cheated. But he never told me, right? So I didn't know till months later that he actually cheated on me within the first 3 months. Because we argued about something. Instead of being an adult and talking to me, he went out and put his dick in somebody else's ass. So, needless to say, I didn't know at the time, so I wasn't upset. But when I found out, I was very upset, okay? I was beyond upset. But I didn't yell and scream at him when I found out. But getting back to what we were talking about, with the job and everything and the paying the bills. It was very stressful for me because I could only pay so much. So he came to me after I'd been on the job for less than a month, almost a month. He said, well, I think we should give your truck back because you can use my car, and save money and, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just thinking to myself, okay, maybe, I don't want to give up my truck. It's my truck. But eventually, after him pestering me, time and time again about giving the truck up, I gave the truck back, cut off the insurance, and I did save money, but I didn't because all the money that was going to the truck was now going to pay half of the bills for his house. And so now I'm driving his car, so he kind of owns me at this point. I'm driving his car to get back and forth to work and everything, and I was saving a little bit of money. I didn't have much to do anything with because I still had to pay the bills, and at this point, I'm not getting food stamps anymore. So, I'm paying for groceries, half of electric, half of food that I can't afford, half of the rent that I can't afford. But I may do. even though I was stressed out, I was looking for another job that made more money, while I was working there. And I was not supposed to be frustrated. I was supposed to be happy in a honeymoon phase with a partner that was supposed to, have my back, who didn't have my back. I had to have my own back. So I'm on the job, and I'm working and I'm looking for another job while I'm working. And I was working at the front desk, and a person came in and saw me, and they went about their day, and then they came back, and I was about to get off my shift, and I get handed a piece of paper, like a little note kind of thing. So I went behind the little area where, guests couldn't see me and stuff, and I looked at the paper, and on it was a phone number, and then below it was like, you can dominate me anytime. And I'm thinking it's cute, I'm thinking it's funny, like, wow, okay, never had that happen before. And I went home, happy and everything for the first time in a long time, and I wanted to share with him this funny story. So I go and I tell him about the story, and the first thing out of his mouth is, oh, we have a threesome, I know a person that we have a threesome with. And I'm thinking to myself, who is this person? Why do you know a person that we could have a threesome with? And then I was like, is this someone that you was hooking up with during the year that, we had free range? He was like, yeah, no. I was like, you're not supposed to be talking to them. This started yet another conversation that he completely ignored. And he's like, I'm sorry. I mean, yeah, she did say that maybe I should talk to you about this because it doesn't seem right. And I'm like, well, why are you telling me that she told you that it was wrong? Shouldn't you have known? You're an adult. You should have known it was wrong. But I digressed. I was like, we talked about it. He said, I'm not going to do it again. I'm sorry. And I was like, you shouldn't have done it to begin with. But I let it go. Should have been a red flag right there. And as I'm working, I have to go to bed kind of early because my schedule changes from week to week, where I would work mornings or I would work evenings. Each week would be different. So I would be going to bed alone because he would be up in the living room jerking off to porn sites when I'm in the bed, jerking off to porn sites. I'm in the bed, he's in the living room jerking off to porn sites and commenting on different pictures of different cross-dressers, sissies, trans girls, lewd comments that he would never say to me. And then I caught him one night, because I rolled over in the bed and I was like, where is he? It's like 1 o'clock in the morning. Doesn't he have to work in the morning? So I go in and I catch him like in the middle of the act, and he just looks at me like a kid that got his hand caught in the cookie jar. And he gives me this smile, and I'm like, what the fuck is that smile about? I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, I'm just looking at porn and jerking. I was like, I'm in the bedroom. You can't just jerk off next to me and like touch me while you're jerking off. He's like, oh, it's not, I didn't want to interrupt you. I didn't want to wake you up. I'm like, yeah, but you're out here when you should be in the bed with me. And I didn't want to start an argument yet again. So I just let it go. Another red flag right there, because this would become a trend with him. A very big trend. So the next day, I get off work, I come home, and I want to talk about it. Because with me, I don't like to let things sit and fester. I like to talk about it. So I sat him down and said, look, I need to talk to you about this porn thing that you've got going on. I was like, I understand that guys like to watch porn. I mean, I like to watch porn from time to time. I'm like, it's no big deal. I was like, but you commenting all these sex things on these people's pictures and stuff, and how you want to, do things with them. Like I said, there's one that you said right here that you said, if I had you in my house right now, I'd be fucking you 24/7. I'm like, I'm in the house with you. Why are you not doing that with me? And he had nothing to say. And I was like, this is going to lead to you cheating. Little did I know that he had already cheated on me, okay? I did not know that at this time. But I kept telling him, this is going to lead to you cheating. I was like, and technically, this is a form of cheating. You being online, talking about what you want to do to these other people. I said, technically, that is a form of cheating. He's like, it's not cheating. It's just commenting on pictures. It's no big deal. It's not going to lead to me cheating. Which down the road, as you will learn in other videos, it most certainly led to plenty of cheating. But at this point, I didn't want to start a war. I didn't want to start a fight. I just wanted to live in peace. I wanted to be in a relationship with somebody who respected me more than to be on porn and commenting on other people's pictures, and I simply said what I had to say, and I said, I'm not trying to change you. I'm not trying to make you get off of this. I'm just hoping that from this conversation, you will understand how it makes me feel and that I don't like it. I'm not telling you have to change. I'm not telling you have to do whatever. You're a grown person. You can do what you want, but I'm just telling you how it makes me feel. And he was like, I understand, and I'll try not to, be on it all the time. I'll try to be next to you when I'm jerking off. And I'm like, okay, that's not the point of this conversation, but you're trying. That's the best I can get, you're trying. And so he did for a little while. He did try. He did, come into the bedroom and put his little computer there and go on to porn and jerk off next to me while I slept. He would touch my butt while he jerked off, because he wanted me to get my sleep so that I could work, so that I could pay the bills. So I was like, okay, and then we continued to have sex. And every time we would have sex, I would have to get dressed up. He would put nothing on to turn me on, no leather, no nothing. Me, stockings, heels, makeup, wigs, anything to turn him on and make him, ready for the thing. Me, he just comes in the room, he's naked, and that's all I need, right? No, I need a little bit more than that, okay? I'm a person that's very kinky, very into different things, as you heard in a last video. I am open-minded when it comes to sex, and for me, the sex just was not good. There was no touching, no compassion, no fire, it was like all empty. It was like he got off and he was good and didn't care about the other person that was there. And whenever I would be in a different position, not just doggy, he would not look at me, which I would come to realize later what that was about, and we'll get into that later on. But he would not look at me. He would sit there and look up at the ceiling or roll his eyes up in the back of his head, like he was really enjoying it. But it was not like he was there with me. It was like he was on a porno shoot. And we would always have to film it. Always have to film it for him. Why? I don't know. Why I agreed to it? I don't know, when I didn't want to be filmed. But we filmed everything. We took pictures, tons of pictures, and it was all for him, and I don't understand why. And then I wound up being posted on some of his sites, which I did not agree to in the beginning. I wanted to keep it peaceful, so eventually I did agree to let him post things, just don't put my face in there and stuff. And I was hoping he wouldn't post them, but oh Lord, he posted everything we did on his sites, so that he could get views and he could get likes and he could get comments and things like that. And for me, it really rubbed me the wrong way, made my skin crawl to know that I had to do this just to make him happy, just to keep him happy, while I was getting nothing. I was feeling empty. I was feeling alone. I wasn't getting romanced. I wasn't getting taken out on dates or anything like that. So I think it was 3, maybe 4 months went by, and continued to do this for 3-4 months. I'm working the job that pays me minimum wage, and then I get a call offering me a job working in the medical field like I had been doing before, and I was happy because I was going to be making a lot more money. So he found out that I had gotten a new job, and for the first time ever, he congratulated me. He took me out to celebrate, but only because I said we should celebrate. He didn't say we should celebrate. I said we should celebrate. It should have been him saying, let's celebrate your achievement. But he never wanted to celebrate any achievement I made unless I said something about celebrating it. Because for him, as a narcissist, to celebrate anything that did not have to do with him, that was not all about him, wasn't good. He didn't want to do it. No. It's not about me. No, I don't want to do it. But he went along with it because I said we should. So took me out to a restaurant. We got some food, we talked about, the new job and how happy he was for me and everything. And I wound up, getting the job, working, travel distance was even further for this job. And the commute was getting to me, and I was hating it, but I did it anyway. I was making money. I was, paying the bills. I paid back what I owed from all the bills for those 3 months that I could not pay everything. I paid back the rest of it. And, I was like, why should I have to do this? Why did he not cover this as my partner until I got a better paying job? But that's just how he was. It was, you have to pay half of everything. You live here, you pay half of everything. And I'm just like, it should not be that way. But as we continued on, I had a new job. The travel time was getting to me and everything. And I just, I kept telling him, I was like, I don't want to do this job anymore. The travel time is so bad. He's like, but you make good money, and you're able to buy stuff for yourself. And I'm thinking in my head, no, I'm able to pay all the bills, not buy stuff, because I haven't bought anything for myself, really. All I've done is buy stuff to put in the house, and I had to say, oh, well, maybe we should get this to make our lives easier, pay half and half and, and stuff like that. And it just was all about me paying half of the bills. And I didn't come to realize this till much later on. But as, we continued in that little area, me traveling and all this, get home, I would still have to cook dinner after an 8-hour shift and an hour and a half travel time, and sometimes 2-hour travel time to get home. I would still have to cook dinner because he didn't cook anything. Then I was expected to be ready to have sex before bed. Where do I have time to do all this and not be stressed out and still have to get up really early so I can get to work early? So everything was working okay for him, but was miserable for me. And he was still doing all of his online stuff that he was doing before. He hadn't cut any of it out. He hadn't stopped. And it was getting worse. And I found out during that time that he was on dating apps. He was on actual dating apps looking for hookups as well, while we are in a relationship, living together. Instead of talking to me about doing things, and having different experiences in the bedroom and stuff, no, he was looking for fresh meat. And I found him because I was actually still on the dating site that we met. And I had went on there one day, and I had seen that his profile was still active, and he had just been on there 30 minutes ago. So I talked to him about that. I was like, why are you still on dating sites? He's like, I'm not. I'm off of them. I'm not on there. I got off of them when we lived together. I said, you're still here. You were on here about 45 minutes ago. And the look on his face was like, and I was just like, why are you lying to me? I'm like, why are you on these dating sites? Why are you trying to hook up? I'm like, what is it that, we're not having sexually that you need to have with someone else? Went silent, gave me the silent treatment for days. Wouldn't talk to me. And I sat there having to come back and grovel and apologize for something I didn't even do wrong before he would talk to me. He didn't talk to me for 2 days. And I had to grovel just to get him to talk to me. And that was the start of a lot of those kind of conversations where I do all the talking and he says very little to nothing and then goes completely silent on me for days until I come back groveling and apologizing so that he will even talk to me. But we will get into that and a lot more in the next episode. So I hope you enjoyed this. Like, subscribe, comment, share, and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.